court.
So when you record it, you're not like streaming it right now?
No.
No, it's recording right now. I just turned it on.
So everybody who listens to the podcast later is gonna have heard me ask that question.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm not doing tech, folks.
Unless he trims off the front of this, then yep.
I felt like there was some other setting I put on when I did this before, and I can't really remember. Whatever. Okay, so welcome to the Political Paradigm Shift podcast. We're a little rusty. This is the first podcast in over a year, I think. I think the last one I did was a debate a long time ago. So I think tonight we're going to talk about abortion. It's a hot topic these days. And so I think we're just going to throw it out there and see what happens. So I wanted to ask you a question, Chuck. Are you old enough to have been eligible to vote when Clinton ran?
Yes.
And did you vote for Clinton?
I did in 92. I did.
That's so interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
George H.W. Bush was just an ineffectual leader as much as anything else, as I recall. I mean, a nice guy, but I did not see him as a leader. And in terms of Clinton, my 20s at that point, I bought into a little bit of a hype about. I guess I was swayed by him playing Fleetwood Mac at the DNC. I don't know. Maybe that's what
saxophone.
But no, I did vote for Clinton in 92. I did not vote for him in 96 for all the damn good it did.
And you voted for
Dole in 96. It would have been Dole in 96.
Yeah.
But
no Ross Perot. That was 92.
Well, I really thought about Ross Perot for a while. Actually, I got talking up Perot to a chick that had a Perot button on there. This was when I was single. So, but yeah, that was he was the thing for a while there. But it didn't take long to see that he was sort of a one-trick pony, I suppose. Good idea, certainly, and it would not have hurt, I don't think, too much to have had someone who was an accomplished businessman manning that. But yeah, I was very uncomfortable in 92 about electing someone with zero political experience in 2016, and neither of them got my vote.
What about you, Gerard? Did you vote for? Are you old enough to have voted for Clinton?
Not in 92. In 96, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you young, and look at you with all the gray in your beard.
That's why I'm so angry for apparently people aren't able to see this, so they can't see that Chuck has this beautiful brunette beard. I have this gray beard. And the other thing people can't see that I did is I put my Twitter handle on my name here, and nobody will see it. But yes, I was to kind of go back presidentially, I was Clinton in 96. I was Bush in Obama's and a Clinton later.
Okay. You voted for George Bush?
Yeah, HW.
Oh, HW.
No, W. I'm sorry,
yeah.
W. I'm getting it wrong. Yeah, I was not old enough in 92.
Right.
I was old enough in 88 to vote for Bush the first time. So yeah, it doesn't.
Well, I was 11 when Clinton ran the first time.
Up.
Yeah, I was in high school, and I don't know if it's this way for elections now in high school, but Clinton was kind of a rock and roll candidate, and I've seen it came off as cool. And hindsight being what it is, I certainly don't feel that way now. But in the time, like you said, playing sax on Arsenio Hall, he did tap into that. People looking for the cool guy going on MTV, going on Arsenio Hall.
Oh, and that's why I shudder when I hear people today say that people, as young as 16 should be able to vote. Are you fucking kidding me? Good Lord. When I was in my mid-20s, I was still making very specious decisions before I voted. that was the age of Reagan, and yeah, I probably would have voted Reagan, but still, my gosh, I cannot imagine what. I mean, I know the other stupid decisions I made at age 16. I can only imagine the decisions I would have made at the polls.
I actually agree with that. I know that was something that was pushed on the left,
Mm.
and I'd probably tilt more to the left. But
Mm.
I think there's got to be a line. There has to be a line where you define what adulthood
Sure.
is in the country. And I realize for certain crimes, if somebody's 17 and a half and murder somebody,
Yeah.
6 months in juvie isn't be firmly now. I just think you've got to define it, and hey, there's your definition. You
We
define
are
it, stick to it.
We are skillfully avoiding talking about abortion, and I think
We
we did a
are.
great job of it.
So before we start, I just want to say I apologize. It looks like my connection's a little off tonight and it keeps freezing up periodically. So it's not much I can do about it, but I do apologize. The reason I asked about Clinton, well, one of the reasons is because he was fairly moderate, right, on abortion, and other things too. But with abortion, I think he had a pretty popular stance, and it would have been popular these days, right? So his stance was like pro-choice in the first trimester, and then after the first trimester, some restrictions after that.
He
and
was
as the
safe,
pregnancy
legal, and
goes on.
rare. Yeah,
Yeah.
safe, legal, and rare is what he.
Yep, that's right. That was it. So I honestly,
Agree with that,
I think
Josh.
that's kind
But
of
you're,
that's where I'm at with the abortion issue. I'm sort of at pro-choice for the first trimester for sure, and then a little bit more restrictions, whatever that means. And obviously, I think there's a cutoff point with the exception of medical issues and issues that threaten the life of the mother or the child. So just to put it out there, I posted 2 things on this on Facebook, and I get the same responses. So the first thing I posted had to do with whatever they're called, those pregnancies, echotropic pregnancies, where it endangers the mother's life, etc. And people pointed out fairly that isn't actually considered abortion, which is fine, but it was sort of besides the point. And then I posted something else in regards to being not getting late-term abortions, how I was against it. And, people on the left were sort of like, yeah, but that never happens, which again is a fair point, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So those are my positions on abortion, and I'll kind of hand it over to you, Chuck, and then we can go over to Gerard and see if he agrees or disagrees and where he's at.
yeah, we're largely on the same page. Yeah, one of the few things I will continue to break bread with Clinton on is safe, legal, and rare. Unfortunately, among the Democrats is ubiquitous and taxpayer funded where needed. No one is interested in that safe, legal, and rare threshold anymore. At least it doesn't seem like it. The thing is, most people, I think, fall on the safe, legal, and rare bandwagon. I think the majority of people, left and right, in between, fall somewhere along that general area. The problem that I'm seeing with the abortion debate that we're having since the Supreme Court leak is that we're, as usual, the extremes are defining the issue. On PPS, I know I've written it a while back, is that since Roe versus Wade, collectively, I mean, with differences from state to state, we had kind of reached more or less what I called an uneasy truce, where abortions in the 3rd trimester and maybe the 2nd were generally frowned upon, with the exception, of course, rape, incest, health of mother. While in the 1st trimester, yeah, go ahead. We had kind of reached that uneasy. We're not allowed to have uneasy truces anymore. It's all or nothing. The debate is now, or continues to, foment around these 2 extreme possibilities: on-demand abortion, no questions up until the millisecond before birth, or 100% abortion prohibitions with prosecution, criminal prosecution of the doctor and the mother. And you see some of the abortion restrictions that are being passed in Louisiana, prosecute the doctor and the mother. That is fucking insane. I cannot imagine. I mean, I thought that, erroneously, I thought that the people who supported that level of restriction were very, very, very small. I was wrong. It's much bigger than that, unfortunately. On the other side, the percentage of people that support up until the millisecond before birth is distressingly large as well. I still think most people are in this reasonable medium. And things, certainly as a libertarian, I don't want government restrictions any more than is absolutely necessary. But at some point in the pregnancy, and I've again been forced to think about this a lot the last couple of weeks, at some point in the pregnancy, it goes from being a clump of cells to something that is pretty damn close to human. And of course, right before birth, it's very, very close to human. At what point in that pregnancy do we no longer see it as a clump of cells? Force yourself to abandon all humanity to look at a baby 41 weeks into gestation and say, that's still a clump of cells. It's not, it's something more. Now, when does that happen? I'm not smart enough to figure that out, and neither are either of you or anybody else. That's a question for the soul, and I'm not sharp enough to answer that question. What I do want is for those women who want to have an abortion to be able to legally get it within a certain time period. Now, I hate not being able to in the abortion when, okay, it's good now. No, it's no longer good. I hate that. I hate uncertainty, and laws have to be certain. Laws have to be clear. Laws have to have no ambiguity in order for them to be effective. And this is a debate which invites ambiguity, because if you don't have that, then you have the extreme. The only unambiguous abortion position is 100% yes, 100% no. And I don't think that fits here, and I hate that. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Back to you, Nick.
So sorry, my screen froze again for a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right. So just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, they did a poll recently came out, and there was like 20% of the population supports abortion until birth, and then 20% of the population doesn't support it at all, and everybody else kind of falls right in there. So it's a very, I mean, it's larger than you'd want it to be, but it's still a very small percentage on either side, and you know those are the extremes of each side. But if I remember correctly, in 2016, Trump did an interview on NBC, I think with Chuck Todd, but I can't remember. And he was advocating for criminalizing abortion. So what you were talking about, yeah. So it's definitely, I feel like, more popular these days to be extreme like that than it used to be, but it's still not the norm, and most of the population is still somewhere in the middle. So Gerard, where do you stand on this issue?
So there's been a lot of materials that have obviously been coming out, a lot of polls and things like that in the last few weeks. And I read a really interesting one that I was not aware of, and that's how the state laws currently stack up against most states. Their abortion laws are up to viability, and that's scientifically defined as 22 to 24 weeks. And I think that's important, and it goes into a lot of what Chuck was talking about, because Chuck is someone who keeps himself pretty well informed. We don't always agree on things, but he keeps himself well informed, and I don't think that was information that he was armed with. And that, again, that's not a shot. What that's saying is, when somebody who is well informed doesn't have that kind of information getting out there, there's so much white noise around it, and I think that's fair. And I think a lot of the problem with the argument is it boils down just to that singular word, abortion. Agreeing with Chuck again in that it ends up getting argued on the extremes, when in reality, there should never be a singular law on abortion. Just in general, at the very least, to me, there should be the two stem laws. There should be on the voluntary abortion that, pregnant and it's just not the right time in her life, for whatever reasons, none of which are my business. That's one discussion or conversation. Then there's the conversation between a woman and her doctor. That is an entirely separate issue. One of the problems I'm seeing with laws that are getting written is they're not treating it like that. They're poorly written. They're very vague. So when you have doctors who are afraid of performing because of these poorly written, ambiguous laws, that to me is enough that those laws should actually be stopped. In my mind, a voluntary abortion, absolutely. I'm personally, in my opinion, I'm not comfortable with that after the point of viability, when it's, we know what that means. I'm not going to go into define
No,
that.
we don't really know. I mean, it does it happen at the exact same point? I am sympathetic to that, man. I wish we had a reliable.
Well, no two pregnancies are going to be exactly the same ever,
Right.
but in general, let's say 22 to 24 weeks is the point where that baby could survive outside of the body. I'm comfortable with there being, a limit. I'm not comfortable with like the, 9.5 month mark saying,
Yeah.
But I also think that in a conversation between a woman and her doctor, that that's a doctor's decision. I am very, very uncomfortable, and we've started to see this some in the last few years, where politicians get involved on medical decisions, life or death decisions. Hydroxychloroquine, say you have to provide that if a patient wants it. I have such a big problem with that. That's the whole death of expertise piece right there, and it goes into the abortion conversation as well.
Yeah.
Anybody who's loved in my life, I put my faith in that doctor's hands, a doctor who's been educated on that experience. And it's not easy to be a doctor. You can't open a Cracker Jack box and get the ability to be a doctor.
You can get other degrees out of a Cracker Jack box.
Cracker Jack, that's a law degree you get from
That's it, yeah.
But I think that should be a separate discussion and conversation. I think there should be no limits. I think at some point in time, we have to tell ourselves, hey, we have medical professionals. We need to put that's not a politician's decision. That is a doctor's decision. That's a medical decision. They take an oath not to harm their patients. At some point in time, we have to put the brakes on, stop and say, hey, we're going to go with the expert. Case doctors should not be afraid of performing surgeries, procedures that need to be performed. It is unconscionable I think most people would agree. It's unconscionable to think that a pregnant woman should have to die because there is some kind of issue. I also think it's unconscionable that a woman if it's a stillborn baby, something like that, it's unconscionable that she should have to deliver that baby. I know women who have chosen to, and that's their decision. Nobody is the arbiter of that decision-making process that any individual has. But that's kind of my thought.
Gerard, I heard something or read something a couple of weeks ago, and it had just enough, made enough sense to me to at least think about it. Giving doctors something on the order of veto authority, that is to say, if the law in a state, whichever state you're talking about, restricts abortion after 20, doctor that's heading up a case decides, no, this is an abortion that needs to be happened, then that doctor's decision can override a state statute. Now, that might set a very dangerous precedent for other things, but it would certainly give us a nod to the expertise of doctors, in this case, gynecologists who are, the experts on gynecology. Now, one thing the pandemic has done the past couple of years is made me wary of experts just because they're called experts, but certainly in something like this that is so highly specialized, yeah, I'm at least willing to listen to that. I'm not ready to endorse that, but I'm going to give a lot of weight to what a doctor says about this decision, particularly like you pointed out. With this is a privacy issue too, but doctor patient. I mean, that's a relationship that we treasure for its supposed private nature. We got to keep that private.
Okay. All right. So moving forward to the other piece of this that's recently come out, as far as what's going to happen at the Supreme Court. So obviously everybody, I'm assuming, is aware of the opinion that was written, or the pre-opinion that was written by Alito, overruling Roe. And I'm assuming Casey. I didn't actually read the opinion, but I know what it says. Essentially, eliminating that precedent and sending it back to the states is the overall consequence of that. So my first question is to you guys, and whoever wants to go first is welcome to, whether or not you actually think that's going to happen. I'm a little skeptical, or a lot skeptical, I should say. And then what you think about the leaking of that document. In my opinion, it was an egregious act, and undermines a super important institution, regardless of where you guys, you stand on the issue. And then, whether or not it should be overruled, and what kind of impact that will have generally on the country.
I guess I'll go first if we're going to keep the cadence going here. First off, I was a bit surprised. Well, I shouldn't say surprised. I mean, it's on brand for Alito. Some of the opinions, he was inching beyond the legal and into the cultural debates that we're having. And I think Supreme Court justices should 100% confine their opinions to the legal realm, irrespective of public decision, irrespective of the flavor of the day. I say that, and of course, Scalia sometimes reference cultural landmarks in his decisions, but I think Alito strayed a little bit too far. Understand the legal basis for his ruling. Again, Roe versus Wade did not outlaw abortion by any stretch. It just simply placed restrictions on what states could do, told them what they could not do in terms of regulations. And I mentioned earlier how clumsy I thought the fetal viability codicil in Casey, 1996, I guess it was. I still think that's a very clumsy threshold. Again, I like laws to be very precise, and fetal viability can vary from pregnancy to pregnancy. So I understand what he's saying in terms of the legal framework for this. I just thought Alito, like so many of us, got caught up in the cultural debate, pro or anti-abortion, and I don't think Supreme Court decisions should be cultural landmarks. I think they should be legal landmarks and restricted to only the was egregious, no doubt about it. These guys and girls have got to be able to make their decisions in a vacuum, a metaphorical vacuum, that is to say, without influence, without having to worry about. And that's why, again, I'm 100% for peaceful protest, but we have laws against intimidating jurors. Like if someone went out and protested in front of a jurist's house during a murder trial, that would be frowned upon. I think doing this with Supreme Court still out there. The opinion has not been issued yet. Even after the opinion's issued, there's something to be said for that, but this is still technically being debated by the Supreme Court. So yeah, I have a big issue with trying to to so obviously influence judges. But yeah, the leak was bad. The leak was terrible. It was unprecedented, and I wish more people were raising hell about it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
unfortunately, because the issue's so big, we forget all about it. Fortunately, but that's the way we do things.
Right. I mean, I'm very much against overreacting these days. I think people overreact constantly. But to me, this was like an extreme underreaction. I don't think people really understand how bad it is when stuff like that happens. I think they see it more as a trivial part of this whole process, especially people on the left who are, radically pro-choice. They were like, well, who cares, right? Because this other issue is much more important, etc. So I agree with you there.
So I'll tell you my thought on the actual ruling. I don't think what was leaked is going to be what the final word is. I think ultimately it's going to be a pretty narrow ruling. I just don't think that the Supreme Court has the stomach to do a broader ruling on that. The last very overly broad ruling they did was that when is it okay to show TV commercials to the creation of super PACs, which I think is wrong. So I think that's what's going to happen there. As for the leak, I fall on the side of I don't care about the leak. I think it's a lot of I think it's created a lot of drama in the press. I think it's more tabloid journalism, and people have been responding to tabloid journalism for as long as I can remember. Certainly since 2016, that's become a big thing. It's not classified to define what information can go and isn't supposed to go. That's there. It's defined. I've had security clearances myself in the past in the military. If the Supreme Court really isn't supposed to let that information out, then they should be using the tools that are already in place to do that. There can be a debate of whether or not we think it's proper. I don't think that there's any debate about the legality. Slap somebody on the wrist a little bit. And really, I think that the Supreme Court in general hides behind closed doors way too much. I'm a fan of transparency in government. I think there are, again, the security classifications that define what information the government can and can't let the public know about. But beyond that, that's our government. We should be privy to these.
We don't let cameras in jury rooms. I mean, this is very much like a jury deliberating. I mean, I'll take issue with you on that.
In jury, we also don't allow them in the Supreme Court. And I think, again, that's wrong. I think the Supreme Court is existing in this world where it's treated as it's above the other branches of the government. I strongly disagree, especially when it's these judges that have lifetime appointments. They need to be held accountable, and their processes need to be held accountable. The tools to do that are not in place right now. Honestly, I think that everything that leads up to these decisions should always. And you know who I think might agree with me is Scalia. When he used to write, he was known for putting a lot of information in his opinions, and he did them to teach future law students. That's why he did that. And I think that background process is just as important. It doesn't hurt anything that's happening in America and what we're doing for the American people to know what's going on, how the justices are making these deliberations, how the clerks are making these deliberations.
So
how many congressmen were Supreme Court clerks? Quite a surprisingly large number of them. And you don't know anything about what they believe because they get to do all that stuff behind these closed doors. I absolutely disagree. There should be a level of privacy for individuals, but for what is going on in the government, that should be transparent.
So I'm going to push back on your transparency argument a little bit. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you why. Think about the transparency we have in Congress, right? Senate hearings, you have C-SPAN, all that, right? So everything is filmed these days. And what happens to the behavior of the representatives and the senators in those hearings, those really important hearings that are public, they become what? Stages to people are over emotional, they're doing all of this stuff. It's all about sort of advertising themselves politically, right? And so I feel like it sort of it makes whatever the issue is much more of a political issue rather than focusing in on solving the issue, because now it's in the public arena. Now, as far as the Supreme Court goes, even more than Congress, their job is to interpret the Constitution. And if you have too much public interference in that through political avenues, right, then that can have an effect it shouldn't have, because the Supreme Court isn't really a political body. It's a constitutional one. And so thinking that this is about transparency necessarily, in my opinion, I think there should be some transparency, but I think that if it unduly interferes in the process, that's a problem.
So keep in mind, I'm not arguing for cameras in the background while they're doing jury deliberations in the Supreme Court. Just like in Congress, when they're sitting there writing bills, and I think that's something for Congress to deal with. But when laws are being written, as separate drafts of the bills are created, those are public. People see the sausage being made on the way to the final product there. So I don't see, in a case like this, that's all. What was leaked was just part of the sausage making process.
But I feel like the more video and records and transparency that we have in Congress, the less efficient it has become. I don't think it's made it a better process. I think it's actually crippled it a little bit. And I'm not saying that we should hide everything, but I'm saying that it puts an element of it taints the process a little bit in some instances.
I disagree. What taints the process is bad faith actors. And I don't think we can run our government in a way that we're making the laws based upon what we think bad faith actors are going to do.
I think it gives them more of an opportunity to be bad faith actors.
I understand what you're saying, Jerome. Yeah, and I'm for government transparency. God knows I want to know what those jokers are up to as much as possible. But I've always seen jurisprudence as a bit of a different animal in terms of these are very, very specific things that have to be decided sort of beyond the political process. Yes, the Supreme Court is part of government. It is one of the three, head of one of the three. In terms of operating in the public eye, I've always sort of preferred having some of these very hard decisions. Again, much like when a murder jury hears a case, they go into a closed room to debate how to interpret the law here, so to speak. And they are assured that they are not influenced by outside forces. They're oftentimes in a high where they will not have ostensibly any contact with the public. Now, I'm sure that's fucking bloody difficult to do now in this age of the iPhone. But again, there is at least that attempt to cordon them off and have them debate these very, very technical things sometimes without having to perform for somebody. And we've seen in some of these televised trials, they become a circus with attorneys playing to the camera, playing to the people.
Right.
Their defense attorney was not talking to the jury. He was talking to the millions of people on the camera. And it just, it breaks your heart because this is not what it's supposed to be about. But to me, the leak was bad. It's very bad. I wish we were talking more about it, but because the leak was about such a very emotional subject as abortion, yeah, I can understand it's going to be pushed to the background while we debate. One other thing very quickly, if they change this now, how far into the draft this decision was. Is this a first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft? There's some debate about how far along the process this information is. We might run into an issue of trust. We're going to run into an issue of trust, I think, anyway, but it might really, if we come up with a Supreme Court decision that is markedly different than what is reflected in this draft, it will establish the precedent that if you raise and find out about these Supreme Court decisions before they're issued, you can fucking change them. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I mean, I know government's supposed to be responsive to vox populi, the will of the people, the voice of the people, but that's not the way the Supreme Court's supposed to work. They're supposed to consider only the constitutional implications or applications of a question. If this happens and the final decision is, then we will have demonstrated that if you go to the justices outside of their homes and do that, you can influence the decision. How would we have felt if we had gotten a draft of the Obergefell gay marriage decision 2 months before it was issued, and it suggested that, hey, we're going to, make this, legalize this or whatever, and then after right-wing protest outside of Ginsburg's home, Sotomayor's home, Kagan's home, Breyer, then they issued a different opinion? That would have sucked. I'm just saying that the Supreme Court's a bit of a different animal in terms of responsiveness to vox populi. Fuck vox populi. They are responsive to the Constitution and the Constitution alone. And I don't like the precedent this could potentially set if that ruling is markedly different than the draft opinion. Now, that having been said, I'm not crazy about the draft opinion, but that's.
I like a lot of what you said there. The jurisprudence, the things like that. One thing I think it's fair to bring up is the legal system now, really at the advent of the internet, when more light has been able to be shined on it, because judges have a lot of power. You see individual judges stop state laws and presidential executive orders in their tracks all the time. We've seen that the legal system in America is not only not in, and I think it would be fair to say that part of the, I think it's more than fair to say, because I think with most problems we have, it comes down to accountability. And I think in a lot of ways, the legal system, a judge has way too much power to offset the lack of accountability that they really have. And as it goes up, I agree with you that when it comes down to, nobody should be able to intimidate judges or jurors into changing their decisions. I am with you on that. It's a little hard for me when it comes to protests in front of the homes of anybody who has that kind of level of power or authority. I absolutely agree with you on that. But I do think that protests in front of the Supreme Court in the town square over some information that comes out about a case that's being deliberated, I think that's acceptable. I think that's part of the American way. Right. So I agree with you in the sense of absolutely that should not be there. But I'm okay with the American people out there hearing about cases, whether or not it's a case that I agree with and going in a direction I agree with, to have their voices heard.
Yeah, and when I say the intent, I'm referring specifically to, in front of their homes or doxing them or whatever. No, I mean, we don't have before this, we don't have experienced what to do with a Supreme Court leak, because in our lifetime, it's never really happened. But now that we have it, on Twitter, Facebook, or going in front of the Supreme Court building, heck yeah, go for it. I mean, it's part of the public debate now. If, let's say 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, when the final ruling is issued, if it's really, really remarkably different than what we've seen in the draft, then people are very fairly going to ask,
That's a great point.
I wonder what kind
Yeah.
of role the leak played in this, or not just the leak, but the subsequent public reaction.
Yeah.
And man, we can't do that. Leaked the Obergefell draft report 2 weeks before the decision came out, and in those 2 weeks, you know, MAGA conservative activists had just gone nuts, and and they changed it, and gay marriage is still illegal or potentially illegal. I would hate
About
that.
the precedent that sets.
People are already doing that. People are already doing that about the Supreme Court. People feel the Supreme Court has become politicized. We watched when there was a Supreme Court vacancy, and McConnell held it open for a year. And Democrat, Republican, it would be wrong regardless of what party did what I'm describing here. But when McConnell held open a seat for the rest of that year, so he could wait and see who the next president could be, that gave people the feeling that the Supreme Court was being politicized. Then when Trump was president, and that same thing happened when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and it was very, very quick to get Amy Barrett Cohen put in there. People again felt that people are already feeling that these decisions that the Supreme Court is making.
But that's a little different, because that's the Senate and nomination process. That's not the Supreme Court itself.
But people's perception of what the Supreme Court now is the same.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Although, to be fair, I think what McConnell did was absolute bullshit, right? But it was.
I think most libertarians I've talked to feel the same way. Even a lot of people on the right.
Yeah, but it was within his
rules
power.
And the political craft.
Yeah,
it wasn't unconstitutional.
Or the rules, certainly not the spirit. Yeah, there's nothing illegal about it. But I tell you what, and I've said this before, I mean, he took a major freaking chance in 2016 when he held up the nomination, because I mean, every freaking poll showed Hillary. Now, yeah, if Hillary's elected, Merrick Garland's nomination is pulled, and there is a very, very much further left justice nominated instead of him. So yeah, McConnell took a hell of a chance there. I mean, politically in terms of that, but yeah, I mean, he's a dick. We all know that, but
to some extent, there's always been a political component to the court. I mean, there has to be.
By design. Yeah,
it's implied, right? I mean, one side is choosing or nominating it and confirming, right? So I think as much as we can, we should try to limit that. And the Congress and in general has just done a terrible job of tainting the whole process, including Harry Reid in 2010 or whenever it was, and then McConnell after that, by eliminating the filibuster for lower court judges and Supreme Court justices. So the process has really been just kind of.
Well, it's baked into the separation of powers that we tried to create. I mean, insofar as, again, the president nominates, the Senate confirms, and you got executive and legislative determining the constitution of the judicial branch. So yeah, there's going to be politics baked into it, no matter. And become the oldest one, but not the gray beard here. I can remember when Supreme Court nominations were largely perfunctory affairs, unless there was an obvious red flag about the candidate. They usually sail through. Now Bork certainly changed that, but even since Bork, I mean, there have been non-controversial. I mean, Ginsburg got 97.3 vote or something like that. I mean, and she was reliably liberal, but not batshit insane or anything. It still happens on occasion, but boy, in this political climate, the vote's going to be pretty much right along the party line in the Senate. Say for a flake on one side or a mansion on the other. It's going to be pretty close to whatever the R versus D breakdown is at the time. So yeah, there's going to be politics baked into this process. I mean, again, as someone was a reporter and covered trials, I mean, 150 trials over the years, at least respectful of the judicial process when it gets to that level. I mean, most of the judicial process is just paperwork. Okay, you came in, you've been arrested for drunk driving. This is your first offense. We're going to put you out of here, $50 fine. Da, da, da. That's most of it. When it gets to that level, murder, rape and things like that, or a Supreme Court decision, there is an almost, solemnness to it that I've always respected and rated independently of not just government, but almost independently of society. When you step into that courtroom, you're in a different fucking world. It's different rules in there than it is on the other side of that door. That dude or woman in the robe up there is God in this little 400 square foot space or whatever. And the rules of engagement are completely different. And everything operates differently. And most of the time it works. It's been, I don't want to say a sacred respect for it, but certainly a healthy respect for the way jurisprudence at that level is usually just out. And I've always seen it kind of separate from, again, not only government, but the rest of society. And I think it's just a special thing, and you have to have, I don't know, special regard for it. And it's not like a political election where we get out, rally, rah, 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 let's do this, let's get enough votes. And it's different. The reality is determined. Just, I don't want us to get into the habit of encouraging Supreme Court leaks so we can have the court of public opinion weigh in on this before the judges weigh in. I like, and we're going to have a chance to weigh in anyway after they release their decision, obviously. But I've always regarded the judicial branch as just a little bit special. But that's just
for me. It's just another chip away at another institution, and everybody's sort of dismissive of it, right? And I just feel like if we keep doing this, right? People, when Trump was president, people talked about him,
the norms, yeah.
Right, damaging norms and all of this other stuff. And it's like, but when it happens on your side or to your advantage or whatever, it's all of a sudden not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
And when people are dismissive of that, over time, what happens is it damages the system as a whole, right? Each institution starts to, become, just damaged. And so I think that I just feel like that this type of stuff needs to be taken much more seriously than it is.
The way Chuck described how he feels about the Supreme Court, for the long time, I really felt the same way. And I think for me, it changed when I started reading about Supreme Court justices giving speeches at political events.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Yeah.
And I don't think that's right for anybody on the right or the left to do. I want it to be that way, and it should be that way. And I think that was the intention for it to be that way. And I'm not advocating for future leaks or anything like that. I just think that the process itself isn't something that we need to be afraid of keeping behind closed doors. Do I think leaks are the best way to do that? Absolutely not. I mean, that's obviously not the best way to do it. And it's kind of funny, you talked about, I know, Nick, you're talking about really the circus that it's interesting. The Senate used to not be. Senators weren't voted by the people. They were appointed by the states.
That's my point, though, right? I mean, our
life.
System in a lot of ways is anti-majoritarian, right?
And it was for life. And they changed it. And I think that was probably the right move to make, especially now. I'm not going to get a whole gerrymandering and everything like that. But I think now the will of the people in putting the Senate together, I'm good with that. So it does kind of make me start to think, and I'll be honest, I don't know the history that led up to that decision. If it's similar to how I think I feel, and maybe some other people are starting to feel about the Supreme Court.
I can give you a little bit of history, not a lot, but a little bit of historic background when the lifetime appointments were seen as worse than British Parliament. That is to say, where you would have a lifetime class of politicians, and the people, I think, very quickly realize that, this is not what I mean, even though these are state representatives, the idea that they would be there for, life was sort of anti-ethical. And of course, I mean, we've made other adjustments in popular election of senators for, what that was 1912 or 1914, we got rid of we installed mandatory popular election of Senate. I think before the Constitution was changed, I think anyway, only a handful were still appointing them, but we've moved to a more democratic Senate since the formation of the country. But the idea behind the Senate, that it is a representative of states rather than people, is still there. But yeah, we've, now that we popularly elect senators in each state, it's a little bit more democratic. But yeah, the Senate's been a different animal. And of course, I mean, it's been called the the greatest deliberate body in the world, which is but yeah, it's a very unique institution. And you're right, it used to be seen as very different from the House. House was rough and rowdy, the Senate was august and deliberative.
And I'm not advocating for a future where Supreme Court justices are elected. That's a recipe. My least favorite kind of candidates are populist candidates. I don't want populist Supreme Court
blows my freaking mind that there are states where all the judges are elected. I live in Virginia, but I live right on the North Carolina elected. Me, that might as well be fucking Mars.
Yeah.
The idea of a judge politicking,
I agree,
is just but in North Carolina and many other states, you elect judges, which I cannot wrap my head around, but it's been going on for decades.
No, you're right. And I've read some pretty awful things about a lot of them run on their conviction rates, things like that, which I think is absolutely wrong. And I think this is where we're kind of tying in close together about, because I agree, I wouldn't want them elected. I want it to be a body. Don't appoint it. I'm okay with the appointments because for the reasons I said why I wouldn't want to be elected, but also because we're not putting politicians, we're not appointing politicians in that place. We're appointing judges who, for the most part, already been appointed as judges by the federal government in other areas. They talk about, there was the talk, we should appoint Barack Obama as a Supreme Court justice, and smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, hell, but yeah, it would be a blatantly political, or to appoint Ted Cruz. Yeah, I think he would be fine, but it would be a blatant political move. In Virginia, there's General District Court, Circuit Court, and of course the Court of Appeals. The General Assembly appoints all the judges in Virginia, and they're not lifetime appointments. They're 6-year appointments, I believe. And as a matter of fact, this year we just had 2 of our judges here renewed for new 6-year. Again, legislature is a point, but the idea that one of these judges would have to print up yard signs and go to rallies and vote for Judge Smales or whatever, that just that's distasteful to me.
So I agree with term limits for justices. To throw it out there, I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I'm open to that. Yeah, very much.
All right. Why don't we end on a political note? So what do you guys think is going to happen in November?
Well, I mean, it's the opposition party and the the party not in the White House usually makes midterm gains, and I think that'll certainly happen this year. And I mean, by any metric, it certainly looks like Republicans are going to make even larger than normal gains. I mean, Biden's consistently polling upper 30s, which is low. There's no doubt about that. And the races that were, I've been watching this, several of the crystal ball forecasts. I've seen several of them that are gone from the top toss up to leans R, and I haven't seen but 1 or 2 go from toss up to leans D. But again, odd as it may seem, the abortion issue and this leak that we've been talking about might be a very, very galvanizing issue in some districts for Democrats. I mean, if you're a Democrat right now, politics with that individual congressional district. If you're a Democrat right now, boy, there's not an awful lot to hang your hat on in terms of contemporary events. You can only get away with saying I'm not Trump for so long. Again, you got to bring now in 2020. I'm not Trump was enough for a lot of people, including the guy who's in the White House right now. I think that was a big attraction to a lot of people, was who he was not. But in 2022, you're going to have a little more beef to your inflation, such as it is, pandemic fatigue, and supply line issues. Goddamn baby formula, Jiminy Christmas. I mean, can you imagine a more?
What is going on with baby formula?
I know it's like supply line issues to the nth degree. I mean, you take the natural supply line disruption along with one plant in particular that had sanctions, and you add it all up, and yeah, it's gotten bad. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Democrat right now, I mean, there's not an awful lot outside of your district to hang your hat on right now. Now, conversely, Republicans are going to have to do a lot better than I'm not Biden. I want to see, if from them, I'm going to would need to see a lot more beef than that. I guess I'm pissed here because in the 5th congressional district in Virginia, larger, very sparsely populated, it's larger than the entire state of New Jersey geographically. We had an honest to God libertarian representing Riggleman, a rarity, a politician that I actually, could tip my cap to and say, yeah, you're all right. You ain't half bad. Unlike 99.8% of your colleagues. He got primaried in 2020 by this Liberty University MAGA ultra-religious dude because Denver Riggleman committed the sin of officiating a gay marriage. And the Republicans in the 5th district just could not stomach that. You got to be shitting me. So now, nomination weekend, he's going to win the election in the fall. So we're going to, I mean, he's the one, he hangs out with MTG and Babert and all those idiots. So yeah, I don't feel like I have very good congressional representation right now, but yeah, on the whole, the Republicans are going to make major gains. I think the House is a given. Senate's probably a given too. It's just a question of how many, but things change. Things always change.
Yeah, it's definitely, so it's going to swing, and it's going to swing for the time. And it's because a lot of people on the left, they get hope because they see in a lot of the Republican primaries in these swing districts, or ones that had gone red for a while and went blue recently, the
Right.
primaries, Republican primaries are a mess in a lot of those places right now. There's some at the left that think, oh, they'll be such a mess, they'll blow all their money and the Dem will be able to slip in. And here's the thing about Democrats and Republicans. Republicans, when it comes time, they vote Republican. Blame Democrats for them, no matter what it is. It was like when Trump was president, every little thing that he did well, you would read all over the place from Republicans, the great things that he's doing. Biden's actually done quite a bit. He did quite a bit in his first year. But Democrats, when things don't go well, even if it's Republicans who cause the things not to go well, you get a lot of Democrats who blame Democrats for not doing enough. And it's when you talk about, I think media bias is a little overblown, but I can't say that you don't hear about very much about the things that Biden's accomplished. But boy, you get an awful lot of the things that he's not doing enough of, he's not doing well enough of. And then when it comes time to get elected, you've got a large segment of people on the left who say, Democrats didn't do enough. I'm not even going to bother voting. I want the whole system to fail and we'll start over from scratch, which is such a stupid, ignorant way of looking at things. So
Burn it all down.
Everything is just going to, I think that's how it's going to rolling out. Republicans are going to retake definitely retake the Senate, and I think most likely retake the House.
And we'll have divided government, which I absolutely love. I much prefer divided government. The less government does, the better.
So I can't agree with you more. The Democrats do this. And it's like now Biden and the Democrats are being hit by two sides at the same time.
Their own and the Republicans, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I agree. I think the Senate and the House are going to get handed over to the Republicans. You know, I'm pretty center in a lot of ways. I'm center right. But I would much rather see Democrats in control. I think the Republican Party has just gone so far fucking insane, right? That it's just I just can't handle them. I think there's, you know, as long as the center of the Republican Party is Trump and MAGA, I just can't ever support them. If they take a different direction, if they went back into a more Bush-esque, Reagan-esque direction, I would definitely consider it. But I mean, the extreme on the right versus the extreme on the left, I'm far more likely to support the left. And as much as I hate people like, or I shouldn't say hate, but disagree with people like AOC and those other people, Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever her name is, and that the other side to me is just, it's just so much worse. They're just so much more toxic, and they have a lot more power within the party. I mean, AOC and them are sort of, I mean, they have power in the Democratic Party, but it's not nearly the same amount of power that MAGA has in the Republican Party. And
You know who's blowing it?
Yeah.
Libertarians are blowing this. Libertarians could have all the power. They really could.
No, we would bitch about it and
But-
try to and give the power away to somebody. That's what
Here's
we
the thing. All it would take is a few libertarians in a lot of these places where Republicans don't like. Libertarians, you know, 5 libertarians, 6 libertarians elected by the House would control the House. They would be the swing vote for everything. And I mean real libertarians, not your Rand Pauls, your Ted Cruz's, but that very small number of swing votes, that would be enough to control it. Republicans and Democrats are so close, they both need the libertarians.
Well, Ted Cruz is not libertarian,
No, but he plays one on TV, and that's why I mean that.
He plays whatever he needs to play.
Through his bullshit. I do respect. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a whore.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I appreciate your optimism about liberty, but to me, and I think I've said this in a recent post in PPS, is that libertarians are not a political party. It's an idea. It's because we're free thinkers, we don't play well with others. We don't, aren't very good at making deals and fostering relationships. We're introverted pricks. We just.
I feel like libertarianism is very popular, right? Like the principles of libertarianism.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of, mind your own business and keep your hands to yourself. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, most people can break bread with that, certainly. But in practice, the way you get things done is by, fucking around with people, by manipulating. Okay, we need this cabal to vote for this bill. Let's see what we can do. If I promise to vote for this guy's, here's the principal libertarian over here. The libertarian's going to be isolated. We're not good sandbox partners.
I'll tell you where the libertarians shoot themselves in the foot. It's for 2 reasons. Number one, too many people who call themselves libertarians are really Republican lights, so they can't pull the people from the left who would also enjoy more government or less government in their lives.
Right.
They're not able to pull them in because they're just another form of Republican.
Sure.
And the other one is, I know it's what libertarian allows way too many crackpots
Yes,
to
it
jump
does.
in the party, and then the whole Libertarian Party looks like Vermin Supreme, or the guy who's up there saying there should be no age of consent, or the guy who's up there saying driver's licenses shouldn't be a thing at all.
Right. Well,
and
that's you touched, Gerard, on one of the big things. I mean, Vermin Supreme, God let him. He's people confuse all the time libertarianism with anarchy. say, well, I think the government's spending too much money. Oh, well, you don't want government to have any authority. No, God damn it. I mean, that's not what I'm about. I mean, that's anarchy. Libertarianism is the idea that, your government could probably be a little damn smaller. We could probably do okay making a few more damn decisions for ourselves and not having government Karen screaming at us about masks or standing on the fucking stickers that are placed in the stores to tell you to stay person. I think we could do with a little less of that. That's libertarianism. Anarchy would be burn it all down, like we've talked about. No, there's a big difference, and people confuse it all the time. And yeah, you're right. That's one of the problems. Libertarian Party. There's a great meme that shows two foxes. One of them is handsome with coiffed hair, beautiful background. The other is a fox that looks like he just got through a damn car wash. And the one above the good fox says libertarian ideals. It's it doesn't translate well into political, direct political activism.
Libertarians had a very strong ticket in 2016. I thought that was a very strong ticket. I thought it was stronger than the Republican ticket.
I mean, I voted for, actually I voted for Evan McMullin in 2016. To show you how stupid I am.
You regret that now?
Yeah, McMullin, boy, what the hell happened to him? He turned into...
He's a Democrat.
Yeah, he's anti... Well, I mean, he's not just Democrat. He's, Trump is the...
Right.
Damn, come on, man. But yeah, I voted for Jorgensen in 2020. I know it's not going to do a damn bit of good, but I mean, I could not bring myself to vote for Trump or Biden or Clinton. I mean,
who was the guy from Michigan that... Justin
Justin Amash, yeah, he's a solid fella. I mean, but he's hard to break bread with because he's going to be very intractable on certain things, and that's not how you win influence in Congress, is by being intractable.
But I mean, they pushed him right out of the party because he wouldn't support some of Trump's, bad behavior.
And the conversation I had about my congressman a couple of years ago, he committed the sin of being a libertarian, officiating a gay wedding. Republicans won't have that. Fuck,
right. Yeah. Yep.
I just want to let you know, I'm getting to the bottom of this. This may look like a Gatorade bottle, but it's about 20% Franklin County authentic moonshine.
Oh, we gotta go.
I've got, well, that's the thing.
Kicks in
the graduated from high school with him in Dan River, class of 1985. He was doing shine then, and he's still doing it today. God bless him. This is where I got it from. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you coming. We should do this again soon. I want to start doing these podcasts a lot more. If you guys are willing to, I can do them on Saturdays usually, unless I'm working overtime. So
that's fine. And yeah, I think it brings us closer together. I know Jared for Spence and PPS, but I always respected him. He's coming from the right place. Even Anthony Strain, I do respect. Boy, he gets on my damn nerves sometimes, but but he's a smart cookie. I like talking to Anthony.
I was actually going to put something on the Facebook page. I'm glad we did this because, like, you and I have tangled before, sure. And just kind of being able to, while it's not certainly, it's as close to being in person as we can without making out with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, and it puts a different perspective on it. And I think if, not to draw this out too, sarcasm for what is wrong with a lot of the political conversations that are going on all the time right now on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever they're having. It's so much different behind the keyboard than it is when you get a chance to kind of get in person and see, hey, there's a lot more in common that we have that we can converse about. And it keeps the crazies away.
Yeah. I don't know about that now.
All right. Yeah. So thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys soon.
Fix your damn internet.
What the hell is the kind of internet you got? You got 14.4 modem in Rhode Island?
This has never, ever, ever happened to me, and it's aggravating.
All the guys always say that. Never happened to me before. I don't know. I've been under a lot of stress lately.
Oh my God,
I'm tired.
I don't know what's going on with it, but every time I say something, it freezes up and I'm like, all right, and I lose my train of
I
thought.
swear,
So
honey, never before, never before.
I promise I will fix it next time. There it goes again. All right, guys.
Take care, fellas.
Take it
See
easy.
ya.